dog was the first to know something was wrong. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the downtown courthouse, casting long beams of golden light across the cold marble floor. Inside Courtroom 7, attorneys in dark suits shuffled papers while bailiffs whispered instructions to witnesses. Claire Morgan sat quietly on a wooden bench, her 5-year-old daughter Lily beside her, small hands clutching a worn plush rabbit. Claire had been called to testify about a warehouse robbery she'd witnessed from her kitchen window 6 months earlier. 2 years had passed since that terrible October day when Lily had disappeared for 8 terrifying hours during the town's fall festival, only to be found in an abandoned utility shed by Officer Mark Ellis and his German Shepherd Titan. But as the side door opened and Officer Ellis entered the courtroom with his dog trotting obediently beside him, Lily's body went rigid. Her finger shot up, pointing directly at the uniformed man, and in a voice that silenced the entire room, she spoke 2 words that would shatter the foundations of the town's trusted institutions forever. Bad man. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. Brookhaven, Vermont wasn't the kind of place where bad things happened. With just under 9,000 residents, it was a tight-knit community where neighbors still brought casseroles when someone was sick, and the annual Fall Festival drew nearly everyone in town. Main Street was lined with American flags from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and the local diner served the same blue plate specials it had for 40 years. It was safe, predictable, and exactly where Claire Morgan had wanted to raise her daughter after her divorce 3 years earlier. At 34, Claire worked as an administrative assistant at Brookhaven Memorial Hospital, her organized nature and calm efficiency making her a favorite among the doctors and nurses. She volunteered at the library's reading hour and sang in the community choir. Her life revolved around 5-year-old Lily, a bright, curious child with auburn curls and a laugh that made strangers smile. Before the incident, as Claire had come to think of it, Lily had been fearless, the first to pet strange dogs, climb to the highest platform at the playground, or introduce herself to new children. Now she startled at loud noises and clung to her mother in crowded places. Dr. Karen Wells, Lily's child psychologist, had called the changes normal for a child who had experienced trauma, though Lily had never been able to articulate exactly what had happened during those missing hours. The official report stated she had wandered away from the pumpkin carving contest and somehow gotten trapped in an old utility shed near the abandoned rail yard. Officer Mark Ellis, with his German Shepherd Titan, had been the hero of the hour, finding Lily when the temperature was dropping and darkness was setting in. Judge Margaret Harlan was a fixture in Brookhaven's courthouse. Her steel grey hair and no-nonsense demeanour inspired both respect and fear among attorneys. Detective Samuel Price had been with the police department for 35 years and was counting the days until his retirement. He had a reputation for thoroughness and integrity that made him both admired and sometimes resented by younger officers eager to close cases quickly. None of them could have predicted how their lives would intersect that July morning, or how a child's 2-word accusation would unravel a web of secrets that had been hiding in plain sight for years in their peaceful town. October 12, 2022 had brought perfect fall weather to Brookhaven, crisp enough for sweaters, but sunny enough for the annual Harvest Festival to draw record crowds to Founders Park. Claire had volunteered at the face painting booth that morning, but by afternoon she was free to enjoy the festivities with Lily. The 5-year-old had been vibrating with excitement for weeks about the children's pumpkin carving contest, clutching her practice sketches and chattering about the cat face she planned to create. "Hold my hand in the crowd, sweetheart," Claire had reminded as they navigated through clusters of neighbours and friends, stopping every few feet to exchange pleasantries. The aroma of caramel apples and cinnamon donuts filled the air, mingling with the earthy scent of hay bales and pumpkins arranged in picturesque displays. "I'm a big girl, Mommy," Lily had protested, though she dutifully gripped Claire's fingers as they made their way to the children's area. The pumpkin carving station was set up under a big white tent with long tables covered in newspaper and plastic tablecloths. Each child received a small pre-gutted pumpkin and child-safe carving tools. Parents were instructed to supervise closely but let the children do their own work. Claire had found them spots at the far end of a table, setting Lily up with her supplies. "I see Diane over there," Claire had said, spotting her friend. "From work, just 2 tables away. I'm going to say hello while you get started. Don't move from this spot." "Okay." Lily had nodded, already focused on marking her pumpkin with a black marker. Claire had walked just 20 feet away, close enough to see Lily's red sweater to wave when Lily looked up. But in the 5 minutes she spent chatting with Diane about an upcoming fundraiser, something impossible happened. Lily vanished. One moment, the little girl in the red cardigan was bent over her pumpkin, tongue poking out in concentration. The next, her seat was empty. Claire's heart had stopped mid-beat when she turned back and saw the abandoned pumpkin, the marker, rolling across the table. "Lily!" she called, spinning in a circle, scanning the crowd for auburn curls. "Lily!" Her voice rose, edged with the first hint of panic. She checked under the table, behind the nearby hay bales, asked the children sitting nearby if they'd seen where Lily went. Nobody had seen anything. Within minutes, Claire's panic had infected the entire festival. The pumpkin carving contest halted. Volunteers formed search parties. Someone called 911. The festival announcer began broadcasting Lily's description over the speakers. 5-year-old girl, auburn hair in pigtails, red cardigan over a denim jumper, white sneakers. Please bring her to the information booth if found. By sunset, the Brookhaven Police Department had mobilized their full force. Officer Mark Ellis arrived with Titan, his German shepherd, collecting one of Lily's hair scrunchies from Claire to give the dog a scent. The K9 unit set out toward the periphery of the park, while uniformed officers methodically searched every tent, booth, and bathroom. She wouldn't just wander off, Claire kept insisting to Detective Price, who was taking her statement while fighting the dropping temperature and fading light. "She knows not to go with strangers. She was excited about her pumpkin." Price had been kind but firm. "Children this age can be impulsive, Mum. They see something interesting, a butterfly, a puppy, and follow it without thinking. We'll find her." As floodlights were being set up, and the search expanded to the surrounding streets, Officer Ellis's voice had crackled over the radio. "K9 unit to base. I think we've got something. Titan is indicating strong interest in the old utility shed by the railroad tracks." Claire had run toward the area before anyone could stop her, ignoring shouts to wait for officers. The abandoned railroad station sat just beyond the north edge of the park, separated by a chain-link fence with several gaps where children had been known to slip through despite repeated repairs. The utility shed was a small rusted structure about 50 yards from the fence line, once used to store track maintenance equipment. By the time Claire reached the shed, Officer Ellis was unlocking a heavy padlock on the door. "Stand back, ma'am," he'd ordered, his tone brooking no argument. "Let Titan go in first in case there's someone in there." The shepherd had entered the darkened structure, followed by Ellis with his flashlight. 10 seconds later, the longest 10 seconds of Claire's life, she'd heard Ellis call out, "She's here, she's safe." Lily had been curled in the corner, tear-streaked and dishevelled, but apparently physically unharmed. She'd clung to Claire like she'd never let go, her small body trembling. Later at the hospital, the doctor had noted minor scratches on Lily's arms and a small bruise on her forehead, all consistent with a child who might have stumbled in the dark shed. There was dirt under her fingernails and her once white sneakers were scuffed and filthy. "Can you tell us what happened, sweetheart?" Detective Price had asked gently in the hospital room, while Claire held Lily's hand. But Lily hadn't spoken a word. Not that night, not the next day. When she finally began speaking again 3 days later, she'd shown no memory of how she'd gotten to the shed or what had happened there. The official report concluded she must have wandered away, perhaps following a squirrel or butterfly, slipped through the fence, and accidentally locked herself in the abandoned shed while exploring. Case closed. A happy ending. A child returned safely. Officer Ellis received a commendation for his quick work, but the Lily who came home was different from the one who disappeared. She started having nightmares, terrible screaming episodes that would wake her in the dead of night. She developed a sudden, inexplicable fear of dogs, turning rigid and silent when one approached. She refused to wear her once-favorite red cardigan, and sometimes, when Claire thought her daughter wasn't aware of being watched, she'd catch Lily staring into the distance with an expression no 5-year-old should ever wear. Dr. Bennett had been patient and skilled, using play therapy, art, and gentle questions to help Lily process her trauma. Children often can't verbalize their experiences, she'd explained to Claire during their bi-weekly updates, especially confusing or frightening ones. Her mind is protecting her by compartmentalizing the fear. For nearly 2 years, they'd lived in this new normal. Lily had made progress. The nightmares came less frequently. She could see dogs at a distance without panicking, though she still wouldn't touch one. She'd returned to school and made friends, but there remained a weariness in her eyes that broke Claire's heart, which was why, when Claire had been subpoenaed to testify in the warehouse robbery case that July morning in 2024, she'd been reluctant to bring Lily to the courthouse. But her regular sitter was sick. Her mother was visiting her sister in Florida, and the brief nature of Claire's testimony had made the judge amenable to allowing the child to sit quietly in the courtroom just for 30 minutes. Claire had promised helping Lily select a book to bring. "You'll sit right behind me, and I'll be done before you finish your story." Lily had nodded solemnly, clutching her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hops, her constant companion since the incident. Claire had settled her on the polished wooden bench in the second row, opened her book, and moved to the witness stand when her name was called. The questioning had begun routinely. Claire described what she had seen from her kitchen window 6 months earlier. Movement behind the warehouse across the alley. A figure loading boxes into a van. She couldn't identify the person, just the general build and clothing. She was almost finished when the side door opened. Officer Ellis entered with Titan, there to testify about evidence collection at the warehouse. They moved to their designated position near the bailiff's station, the German Shepherd sitting obediently at Ellis's heel. Claire had just finished answering the defense attorney's final question when she heard the small gasp from the bench where Lily sat. She turned to check on her daughter and froze. Lily had gone pale, her eyes wide and fixed on Officer Ellis. Before Claire could move, before she could interrupt the proceedings, Lily's small finger rose, pointing directly at the uniformed officer. "Bad man," she said, her voice cutting through the courtroom's professional murmur. The words hung in the air, simple but devastating. Judge Hawthorne stopped mid-sentence. The court reporter's hands hovered over her keyboard, and Officer Ellis, the decorated K-9 officer, the man who had found and rescued Lily, met the child's gaze for a split second before looking away. "This court will take a 15-minute recess." Judge Hawthorne's gavel came down with a sharp crack that made Lily flinch. "Officer Ellis, my chambers. Now, Miss Carter, please remain with your daughter. Detective Vargas, would you join us?" Claire rushed to Lily, who was trembling as if the temperature had plummeted. She gathered her daughter into her arms, feeling the rapid flutter of Lily's heart. "It's okay, baby," she whispered, though nothing felt okay at all. "You're safe." Lily's eyes remained fixed on the doorway where Officer Ellis had disappeared, Titan trotting beside him. "Bad man," she repeated, softer this time, as if to herself. Then she buried her face in Claire's shoulder. The courtroom buzzed with whispers as the bailiff tried to restore order. The prosecutor for the warehouse robbery looked bewildered, glancing between Claire and the judge's chambers. Claire noticed several people eyeing them with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright suspicion. "Mrs. Carter?" A woman in a dark suit approached, her expression professionally neutral. "I'm Caroline Weber, victim advocate for the county. Judge Hawthorne asked if you'd be willing to speak with someone while she addresses this situation." Claire nodded, still holding Lily close. "Who?" "Dr. Lillian Porter is in the building. She's our forensic child psychologist. Would you be comfortable with her speaking with Lily?" A mixture of relief and dread washed over Claire. Something was happening. Something that had been buried for 2 years was finally surfacing, but she was terrified of what it might mean for Lily. "Yes, but I stay with her every minute." "Of course," Caroline agreed, guiding them toward a small conference room down the hall. "The judge also asked me to collect your contact information. This matter may require follow-up." Meanwhile, in Judge Hawthorne's chambers, the atmosphere was tense enough to snap. The judge sat behind her desk, fingers steepled, studying Officer Ellis with piercing grey eyes. Detective Vargas stood by the bookcase, his weathered face inscrutable. Titan lay at Ellis's feet, seemingly relaxed, but with ears pricked forward. "Officer Ellis," Judge Hawthorne began, "would you care to explain what just happened in my courtroom?" Ellis maintained perfect posture, his expression professionally concerned. I honestly have no idea, Your Honor. Children sometimes get confused, or that child didn't seem confused to me, the judge interrupted. She seemed quite certain and quite afraid. With respect, Judge, Officer Ellis said, I was the one who found her when she went missing. Perhaps she associates me with a traumatic memory, being lost, scared. Detective Vargas cleared his throat. That still wouldn't explain Bad Man David? Ellis's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I can't account for the imagination of a 5-year-old girl, Detective. I found her locked in that utility shed, saved her. She was in shock at the time. Who knows what she remembers, or thinks she remembers? Judge Hawthorne tapped her pen against the corner of her desk calendar, then looked up sharply. Detective Vargas, I want you to pull the file on Lily Carter's disappearance, all of it. Reports, photos, witness statements, medical exam notes, everything. Have it on my desk within the hour. Yes, Your Honor, Vargas replied, his expression unreadable, eyes narrowing slightly. And Officer Ellis, she continued, her tone like ice cracking under pressure. I'm temporarily relieving you of your duties in this courthouse. You'll remain in the officer's lounge until this is sorted out. Judge, that's an order, officer. Hawthorne's voice cut clean through the room, final and absolute. And leave your K9 with the handler on standby for just a moment. Something flickered across Ellis's face, a tightening around the eyes, a subtle tension in the line of his shoulders before he smoothed his features back into professional deference. Of course, Your Honor. In the small conference room down the hall, Dr. Porter had introduced herself with a warm smile and a voice soft enough to calm the fluorescent lighting overhead. She looked nothing like Claire had expected from a forensic psychologist. No stiff posture, no clipboard, just kind eyes, practical clothes, and an unhurried presence. Lily, she said gently, I'm Dr. Porter, but you can call me Lillian if you'd like. I talk to children when they have important things to say that grown-ups really need to hear. Lily pressed herself closer against Claire's side, gripping Mr. Hops so tightly his ears bent sideways. You said something very important in the courtroom, Dr. Porter continued, keeping her voice light. About Officer Ellis being a bad man. Can you tell me why you think he's bad? Lily shook her head, eyes locked on the floor. That's okay, Doctor, Porter said. Would you like to draw instead? Sometimes it's easier to show things than say them. She pulled a pad of paper and a set of coloured pencils from her bag, placing them on the table like an offering. After a moment's pause, Lily reached out for a black pencil. Claire held her breath as her daughter began scribbling harsh, jagged marks across the paper. What are you drawing, sweetheart? Dr. Porter asked softly a few minutes later. The dark place, Lily whispered, still drawing. There was barking. Claire and Dr. Porter exchanged glances. The shed where they found you? Claire asked carefully. Lily shook her head. Under, she said, under the shed. Dr. Porter leaned forward slightly. Under the shed? Lily nodded, switching to a brown pencil. The dog was there too, she murmured. He tried to help. Claire felt a cold ripple slide through her. In all the police reports, there had never been any mention of a space beneath the shed, and no mention of a dog, other than Titan, finding her. Lily, Dr. Porter said gently, her tone still warm but edged now with quiet urgency. Was Officer Ellis's dog Titan, the one who tried to help you? Lily nodded again, switching back to the brown pencil. She drew the suggestion of a dog's face, long ears, a dark nose, eyes wide. He wouldn't stop barking, she whispered. Until the bad man hit him, Claire gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Dr. Porter stayed composed, though a flicker of sharpness entered her eyes. Did the bad man hurt you, Lily? She asked softly. He locked me up, Lily said, her voice beginning to tremble. He said I was special, that I had to be quiet, that no one would find me because he was the police. She looked up at Claire then, her eyes full of tears. But I was good, Mummy. I didn't tell. Not even when Dr. Bennett asked me. Claire gathered her daughter into her arms, sobbing quietly. You did nothing wrong, baby, she whispered. Nothing at all. Dr. Porter made a few brief notes, then set her pen down. Lily, you're being so brave. Would it be okay if I ask you one more question? Lily nodded, her head still, resting against Claire's shoulder. How did you get out of the dark place? The man brought me up when it got dark, Lily said, her tone suddenly hollow, her words rote like she was reciting lines remembered more by fear than understanding. He put me in the shed. He told me to count to 100 before I made any noise. Claire felt her arms tighten protectively. But then other people came, with lights. And he acted different, like on TV, Lily said. When someone pretends. Dr. Porter slowly closed her notebook. Thank you, Lily. You've been incredibly brave. She turned to Claire. Mrs. Carter, with your permission, I'd like to recommend an immediate medical examination for Lily at Millfield Memorial. Not just the ER, our pediatric forensic team. The phrase forensic team sent a fresh chill through Claire, but she nodded without hesitation. Whatever she needs, Dr. Porter stepped out to make arrangements. Claire stayed seated, running her fingers through Lily's hair, trying to make sense of what she'd just heard. How had no one seen this? How had that man, that officer, used his badge to... A knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Detective Vargas entered quietly, closing the door behind him. His expression was drawn, eyes shadowed by something heavier than routine procedure. Mrs. Carter, he said solemnly, I've been assigned to reopen Lily's case. His gaze shifted to the little girl, and something in his voice softened. Hello there, Lily. I'm Detective Vargas. I need to ask you and your mum a few questions, but they can wait if you're tired. Lily studied him carefully, then tilted her head. You have grandpa hair, she said softly, pointing to the silver at his temples. A faint smile touched Detective Monroe's weathered face. I suppose I do, he said, before turning back to Rachel. I just reviewed the initial report from 2 years ago. Officer Ellis was first on the scene when the call came in about Lily's disappearance. He was also the one who found her, alone. Rachel's stomach dropped. No one else was with him? Monroe shook his head. He radioed in from the utility shed. No witnesses. No backup at the time. You think... Rachel stopped, her throat closing. You think he took her? And then pretended to find her? I'm not jumping to conclusions, Monroe said carefully, aware of Lily's presence. But there are inconsistencies. The padlock on the shed, for example. Ellis reported it was rusted shut from disuse. But the groundskeeper says those sheds are checked monthly for trespassers. The locks are maintained. She said she was kept under, Rachel whispered, not in the shed itself. Monroe's expression hardened. There's an old maintenance tunnel system that runs beneath that section of the rail yard, mostly forgotten, sealed off decades ago after an accident. But, he trailed off, glancing at Lily, we'll need to investigate thoroughly. Before Rachel could respond, a knock at the door drew their attention. Dr. Porter stepped back into the room, Carolyn Webber just behind her. The team at Millfield Memorial is ready, Dr. Porter said. They can see Lily immediately. I'll drive you, Monroe offered. We've got officers tracking Ellis now. He left the courthouse without clearance, despite Judge Matthews's orders. Rachel gathered Lily's things, her hands trembling. As they prepared to leave, raised voices in the hallway made them pause. A uniformed K-9 officer, not Ellis, stood outside, gripping Rex's leash tightly. The German shepherd was straining against it, whining low in his throat. He won't settle down, the officer said, clearly flustered. Ellis handed him over without a word, but the dog's been like this ever since. It's strange. He's one of the most disciplined canines in the unit. As Rex caught sight of Lily, his whining intensified into a restless, urgent sound. To everyone's surprise, Lily gently pulled away from Rachel and stepped toward the dog without hesitation. He remembers, she said quietly, placing her hand on Rex's head. The dog stilled immediately, leaning against her side, protective and alert. Monroe watched the interaction with narrowed eyes. Bring the dog, he said to the K-9 handler. If Ellis is looking for her, Rex might be our best early warning system. As they made their way to Monroe's unmarked car, Rachel felt a strange, aching mixture of emotions, terror at what Lily had endured, and awe at the quiet resilience in the child beside her, and a fierce determination to see justice done. The courthouse steps stretched before them like an endless gauntlet. Each step took them farther from the orderly world Rachel had believed in just hours ago, and deeper into a nightmare that she now realized had begun 2 years earlier. But Lily walked steadily beside her, one hand in Rachel's, the other resting gently on Rex's back. The German shepherd moved in sync with the child, his gait measured, his presence constant. Whatever happened next, Rachel vowed, Lily would not face it alone. Detective Elijah Monroe's office was a war room by midnight. The walls were covered in timelines, maps and photographs, crisscrossed with string and annotated with notes in dark, slanted handwriting. What had begun as a simple review of Lily Reynolds's disappearance had become something far more disturbing. Monroe stood back, coffee in hand, eyes scanning the evidence with the slow, methodical focus of a man who had spent 35 years cataloguing the worst of humanity. "You see it too, don't you?" Dr. Lillian Porter stood in the doorway, her coat still on, eyes weary but sharp. Monroe gave a grim nod. "5 children," he said, "all found by Officer Cross, all between 2019 and 2022, all near abandoned or city-owned properties." He pointed to a photo of a small blonde boy, no older than 6, Tyler Mackenzie, found in an empty storefront after being missing 6 hours. He moved to another, a dark-haired girl, looking away from the camera. Zoe Williams, 7, discovered in a maintenance closet at the old community center. 3 more photographs completed the chilling arc, each child found alone, each case closed quickly, no witnesses to the actual discovery. "The department gave him commendations," Monroe said, voice thick with disgust. "Hero cop. Found the kids no one else could." He stared at the photos. Meanwhile, he was probably the one. He stopped, jaw tightening. The thought was too vile to finish aloud. "What did Lily's exam show?" he asked, shifting focus. Dr. Porter opened her notes. "No signs of sexual assault, thank God, but—" She looked up, her expression tight. There were healed abrasions on her wrists and ankles, consistent with restraints. She's mildly malnourished, which supports her claim of being held for hours, and there's a small scar on her left shoulder. Rachel said it wasn't there before the disappearance. Monroe exhaled sharply, pinching the bridge of his nose. "And nobody noticed, not the ER staff, not her pediatrician." "The ER was looking for immediate trauma," Dr. Porter said, "and small scars, they're easy to miss, easy to explain away. Kids fall, bump into things. We're conditioned to dismiss the little stuff." She paused. The silence that followed felt like the deep breath before something awful broke the surface. "What I find most significant," Dr. Porter said, "is her interaction with the dog." Monroe nodded. Rex recognized her instantly, not just as someone familiar, but as someone he needed to protect. He walked over to another section of the wall, where a neat row of documents and photographs detailed Officer David Cross's career. 15 years with the Millfield Police Department, Monroe said, tapping one of the images. K-9 unit supervisor for the last 8. Unmarried, lives alone in a ranch house on the outskirts of town. Volunteers with youth sports, not a single official complaint on record. "Too clean," he muttered. "Nobody's this perfect." His cell phone buzzed. Judge Matthews. "Monroe," he answered. "I've signed the warrants," the judge said without preamble. "Cross's home, vehicles, storage units, and electronics. I'm also authorizing a forensic excavation beneath the utility shed where Lily was found. Thank you, Your Honor. We'll move immediately." "Any word on Cross?" "Nothing. Not at home. Not answering his phone. I've issued an APB, carefully worded. Officer needed for questioning. Approach with caution. I don't want to spook him until we have hard evidence." "Understood." Monroe hung up and turned to Dr. Porter. "We need to check on Rachel and Lily before we execute. Cross is in the wind, and I don't like it." At Millfield Memorial Hospital, Rachel sat in a dimly lit pediatric room, her chair pulled close to Lily's bed. Her daughter was finally asleep, breathing deep and even for the first time in hours. The medical exam had been long, exhausting. Lily had endured the physical checks, the documentation of old injuries, the forensic photographs, and the quiet, careful questions. She had answered them all with brave little nods, her voice quiet, but unwavering, until sleep took her all at once, like a light extinguished. Rachel, though, couldn't rest. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw David Cross's face, the man she'd once sobbed in front of, thanked, hugged, the man who had hurt her child. Her hands curled into fists in her lap. A soft whine drew her gaze to the corner of the room. Rex lay on a hospital blanket, head resting on his paws, his eyes fixed on Lily with an almost human intensity. The hospital had made an unprecedented exception, allowing the service dog to remain at Lily's bedside. Dr. Porter had explained the dog's importance to both the investigation and the girl's recovery. There was a quiet knock. Rachel tensed, but it was only Detective Monroe and Dr. Porter. Monroe's face was grim. He gestured for Rachel to step into the hallway. "We found something," he said, keeping his voice low as the door clicked shut behind her. "Cross wasn't just targeting Lily. We've identified at least 5 other children, same pattern, missing for hours, found by Cross, no witnesses, all showing signs of..." He paused, jaw tight. Of what? Rachel whispered. Monroe met her eyes. Of being kept. That was the word doctor Porter used, but it didn't come close to describing what Rachel felt as her knees buckled beneath her. 5, she echoed, her voice barely audible. Dr. Porter gently guided her to a nearby chair. Yes, 5 other children, she said softly. We're having them all brought in for new forensic examinations. Their parents have been notified of our concerns. But that's not the only reason we're here, Monroe added, his tone darkening. Cross has vanished. He's not at home. He's not answering calls. We've begun executing search warrants now, but until we locate him, we have to assume he knows Lily identified him. A cold wave of fear washed over Rachel. He knows, she whispered. He knows she remembers. We have to assume so, Monroe confirmed. We've arranged a safe house outside town for you and Lily. Officer Tanya Wilson will accompany you. She's one of our most trusted. And she was never closely associated with Cross. Rachel's eyes drifted toward Lily's room, her heart thudding in her chest. As soon as she wakes? We don't want to disturb her sleep, Dr. Porter said gently, but we can't wait too long. Rachel nodded, then hesitated. What about Rex? Lily? She needs him nearby. Monroe and Porter exchanged a look. Technically, he's department property and evidence in an ongoing investigation, Monroe said, but I spoke with the chief. Given the circumstances, Rex will stay with Lily. He seems fiercely protective of her, and right now that's an asset we can't ignore. Back in Lily's room, Rachel sat by her daughter's bed again, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest. How could she explain any of this to a 5-year-old? That they had to leave in the middle of the night? That the officer who had supposedly saved her was actually the one who had locked her away? That nothing in their world was safe or simple anymore? The weight of it all pressed down like a stone. Rex stirred beside the bed, ears twitching, gaze fixed on the door. He hadn't moved more than a few feet from Lily since they arrived. Rachel didn't know whether to cry or be grateful, probably both. 2:17 a.m. The search of Officer David Cross's home began with flashlights and drawn weapons. 6 officers, led by Detective James Hargrove from Internal Affairs, entered the modest ranch house on the outskirts of town. It was quiet, too quiet. They suspected it was empty, but nobody spoke until they cleared every room. The house was immaculate, meticulously clean, almost sterile. No personal photos, Officer Martinez noted, scanning the bare walls of the living room. No family, no friends, just service commendations. They moved methodically, documenting everything. The kitchen, basic supplies, healthy food, protein supplements, nothing out of the ordinary.
The living room, a large television, a perfectly arranged bookshelf filled with titles on law enforcement, K-9 training, and military history. Then they reached the basement. That's where everything changed. Sir, you need to see this. Martinez's voice carried up the stairs, tight with urgency. Detective Hargrove descended into the basement to find the officer standing before a door, ordinary at first glance, except for the heavy-duty deadbolt anchoring it, far more than what you'd expect on a basement room. He inserted the key from Cross's personal ring. It turned smoothly. The door creaked open to reveal a windowless space converted into a makeshift office. A large desk, locked filing cabinets, and a sleek, high-end computer system hummed quietly. The room was clean, too clean. Check every file, every drawer. Hargrove ordered, and called tech. I want that computer imaged and cracked ASAP. They moved quickly. The filing cabinets yielded surface-level documents, tax records, training certificates, spotless service evaluations, 2 spotless. Then Officer Collins opened the main desk drawer and froze. Got something here, he said, voice low. Nestled beneath a false bottom was a leather-bound notebook, worn and unmistakably personal. Inside, the pages were filled with handwritten entries, dates, locations, cryptic notations. Blonde female 7, community center 47. Brown male 6, west side storefront 542. Hargrove exhaled sharply. Jesus, he was keeping records. By dawn, the findings had snowballed into a damning mountain of evidence. Cross's encrypted computer folders revealed surveillance photographs, schoolyards, playgrounds, bus stops, each timestamped, each marked in his garage. They found a hidden compartment built into the back wall. Inside were restraints sized for small limbs, vials of sedatives, some traced to the K-9 unit's medical stores. But the most incriminating discovery was a second property, a remote cabin 30 miles outside Millfield, purchased under an obscure LLC that took hours to trace, but eventually led straight back to David Cross. Meanwhile, Rachel and Lily were being settled into a government safe house. It was modest but secure, normally reserved for protected witnesses. Thick walls, reinforced locks, covered cameras. Officer Tanya Wilson maintained a discreet but constant presence, always alert, always near. Lily had taken to the space quickly, though she never ventured far from Rex, who moved like her shadow. "Mommy, is this our new home?" Lily asked, pressing her small face to the kitchen window, peering out at the fenced backyard. Rachel crouched beside her. "No, sweetheart, just for a little while, until the police finish their work." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "Because of the bad man." Rachel swallowed hard. "Yes," she said softly, "because of him. But you're safe now. Officer Wilson is here to protect us." She reached over and stroked her daughter's hair. "And so is Rex." At the sound of his name, the German shepherd perked up, moving closer. His ears were sharp, his eyes scanning. Lily placed her hand gently on his head. "He's a good dog," she said solemnly. "Even when the bad man hurt him, he tried to help me," Lily said quietly. Rachel's heart clenched. She leaned in gently. "Can you tell me more about that, sweetheart? About Rex trying to help you?" Lily's expression turned solemn. "When the bad man put me in the dark place, Rex came too. He kept barking and trying to stay with me. The bad man got mad and hit him, but Rex wouldn't go away." She pressed her cheek against the dog's thick fur. "He's my friend." Rachel swallowed the lump rising in her throat. "Yes," she whispered. "He is." That afternoon, as Lily napped, Rex curled protectively beside her. Rachel sat at the kitchen table across from Detective Monroe. His expression was darker than usual. A folder sat between them. "We found his trophy box," Monroe said grimly, "hidden in a wall safe at the cabin." Rachel's stomach turned. "Items from each child," he continued. Lily's red hair ribbon, a shoelace from Tyler McKenzie, a charm bracelet from Zoe Williams. He tapped the folder. Photographs, documentation, records of what he did. Rachel couldn't bring herself to open it. Was Lily? Monroe shook his head quickly. No explicit abuse. But he paused, jaw tightening. Restraints, confined spaces, psychological torment, long hours in darkness, isolation, the kind of harm you can't always see. Rachel's voice was hollow, and no one suspected anything. For years, Cross was careful. He used his badge like armor, controlled the narrative, positioned himself as a hero cop, always the one to find the children he himself had taken. Monroe's face was drawn, aged by the weight of it all. But when he spoke again, his voice carried something harder, certainty. But he made one critical mistake. Rachel followed his gaze to the bedroom, where Rex lay, ever watchful beside Lily. "Rex," Monroe said. "Cross trained him to track and recover, but he couldn't force him to participate in the abuse. According to the K-9 trainer we interviewed this morning, Rex had started acting out over the last 2 years, refusing commands, showing aggression toward Cross in certain contexts. They thought he was just getting old," Rachel murmured. "Or sick," Monroe nodded. But Rex knew. All this time, he knew what Cross was doing. Rachel's eyes filled, and he tried to stop it. "Animals have a moral clarity people sometimes lack," Monroe said. Rex was trying to protect those children in the only way he could. A sudden commotion outside broke the moment. Officer Wilson appeared in the doorway, her hand near her holstered weapon. "Sir," she said, "Rachel's parents just arrived. They're at the perimeter, demanding to see her and Lily." Rachel stood. "My parents? I called them this morning, but they're supposed to be in Florida. They flew back as soon as they heard," Wilson explained. "But they weren't on the approved visitor list, so I didn't let them through until I could confirm with you." "It's all right," Rachel said quickly. "I want to see them." Minutes later, Martha and Bill Thompson burst through the door of the safe house. Their faces were pale with worry and road-worn fatigue. Martha wrapped her arms around Rachel in a fierce hug, while Bill immediately turned to Monroe. Rapid-fire questions about safety protocols and the current status of the investigation. "We came as soon as we heard," Martha said, pulling back to study Rachel's face. "That monster using his position to do this? How could he?" Rachel felt a surge of gratitude for their strength, their presence, their unwavering support. "Lily's finally sleeping," she said. "She's been so brave through all of this." Bill's expression softened as he looked toward the hallway. Just like her mother, the mood in the room darkened. "I want him caught today." "We're doing everything possible, sir," Monroe assured Bill. "Every officer in 3 counties is looking for Cross." Bill's eyes narrowed. "And what about the department? How did they miss this? Was anyone else involved?" It was the question that had haunted Monroe since the first signs of Cross's betrayal. "We're investigating that as well. So far, it appears Cross acted alone. But yes, there were institutional failures that allowed him to operate undetected." Bill scoffed. "Institutional failures. A fancy way of saying the blue wall of silence." "Dad," Rachel said gently, "Detective Monroe has been helping us. Not every officer is corrupt." Bill looked at her, his features softening. "You're right, of course. I'm just so angry." "We all are," Monroe acknowledged. "But right now, the priority is keeping Lily safe and finding Cross before he disappears completely." As if on cue, Monroe's phone buzzed. He stepped aside to take the call. Rachel watched his expression sharpen, his voice low but urgent. When he returned, his posture was taut with new energy. "We've got movement," he said. "Cross's credit card was used at a gas station 40 miles west, headed toward Interstate 80. Security footage confirms it's him. He was already at the door, reaching for his coat. I need to get back to the station. Officer Wilson will stay here, and more backup is en route. Rachel stood. Will you catch him? Monroe met her gaze. We will, whatever it takes. Then he was gone, swallowed by the night. Rachel drifted to the bedroom doorway, her eyes falling on the quiet scene inside. Lily slept curled beneath the covers, her breath soft and even. Rex lay at the foot of the bed, head lifted as Rachel appeared, his ears twitching before he settled again, still vigilant, always alert. In the stillness of the safe house, with her parents murmuring quietly in the kitchen and her daughter finally resting, Rachel allowed herself to imagine a different future. Justice for Lily and for the others, a chance to heal, to breathe. But even as she clung to the hope, a cold weight pressed behind her ribs. She'd seen the look on Monroe's face, the tight jaw, the weary eyes, the unspoken urgency. Cross was out there, cornered, desperate, and desperate men were the most dangerous of all. The rain started just after midnight, a soft, steady rhythm against the roof of the safe house. Rachel sat by the window in Lily's temporary bedroom, the room dim but warm, her chair pulled close to the bed. Water streaked down the glass in lazy rivulets. The digital clock glowed 1:17 a.m. Nearly 24 hours since Lily had spoken those two words that changed everything. It felt like a lifetime ago. Her parents had reluctantly departed hours earlier, finally persuaded to get some rest at a nearby hotel after Rachel assured them she and Lily were safe. Officer Wilson remained posted in the living room, quietly coordinating perimeter checks with the backup officer now stationed outside. Rex hadn't moved from Lily's side. He lay curled at the foot of her bed, silent, eyes watchful. Rachel's phone buzzed in her pocket. Detective Monroe. She stepped into the hallway, keeping her voice low. Any news? Cross ditched his vehicle at a truck stop near the state line. Monroe said. His voice carried the rasp of fatigue, but also something sharper, urgency. But we got something else. Forensics finished their dig beneath the utility shed. Rachel gripped the doorframe, and they found a concealed entrance to an old maintenance tunnel, just like we suspected. Modified, soundproofed, reinforced. They found trace evidence consistent with Lily's clothing and her hair. She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. Monroe continued quietly. They also found dog hair, same breed as Rex. It confirms what Lily told us. Rachel closed her eyes. God, have you identified the other children? 5 confirmed from his notebook so far. We've interviewed 3 today, with Dr. Porter present. 2 of them remembered enough to corroborate Lily's story. The other 2 were younger, 3 or 4 at the time. Their memories are fragmented. And Cross, no firm location yet. But we've frozen his bank accounts and flagged his ID at airports, bus stations, rental agencies, everywhere. He's running out of room. There was determination in Monroe's voice. But Rachel sensed the undercurrent of unease. Cross had planned too carefully to underestimate now. I want to bring Lily in tomorrow, Monroe added, for a formal recorded statement. Dr. Porter will conduct it. Everything will be as gentle as possible. Rachel looked back toward the bedroom where her daughter lay sleeping under a soft quilt. Is that really necessary? She's already been through so much. I wouldn't ask if it weren't, Monroe replied. We need her testimony on record for the prosecution. Dr. Porter will use play therapy, nothing forceful. Honestly, it might help Lily to share her story in a structured, supportive setting. Rachel said nothing for a long moment. Then, all right, after ending the call, Rachel returned to her chair beside Lily's bed. Rain tapped softly at the window. The rhythm might have been soothing under different circumstances, but every shadow now felt like a threat. Eventually, exhaustion pulled at her, and her head dipped forward in uneasy sleep. She was jolted awake by a growl. Low, warning, primal. Rex stood at the foot of the bed, his body stiff, ears forward, hackles raised. His gaze was locked on the bedroom door. Rachel froze. 3:42 a.m. blinked on the clock in eerie red. The house was quiet, too quiet. No creaking floorboards, no shifting walls, just a hush of rain outside, and the low rumble building in Rex's throat. Rachel reached slowly for her phone, heart pounding in her chest. A shadow appeared in the doorway. Officer Wilson. Her voice was a whisper, hand on her holstered weapon. Everything okay in here? Rachel didn't answer. She only pointed to Rex. The dog hadn't moved, his body still tense, vibrating with a silent alert only he seemed to sense. And then, a sound, barely audible. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. Rex was still growling. I don't know why, Rachel said, her voice taut. Wilson frowned and stepped fully into the room. I just checked the perimeter. Everything secure. All doors and windows locked. She crouched beside Rex, speaking low and calm. What is it, boy? What do you hear? The German shepherd didn't move, ears twitching, his eyes trained on the dark hallway beyond the bedroom. Then he stepped forward, placing his body squarely between Lily's bed and the door. I'm checking again, Wilson said. Standing, she drew her weapon. Stay here with Lily. Lock the door behind me. Rachel nodded. As soon as Wilson disappeared into the hallway, Rachel locked the door, then turned to Lily, her voice hushed but urgent. Sweetheart, we need to be very quiet now, okay? Lily blinked awake, instantly sensing something was wrong. Mommy, is a bad man here? No, baby, Rachel said quickly, brushing hair from her daughter's forehead. But Rex is worried about something, so we're just being extra careful. She helped Lily into her slippers. We're gonna play a hiding game. Hide and seek, remember? Lily nodded solemnly. Rachel led her to the bathroom, the safest place in the room. No windows, one entrance, solid door. Rex followed, slipping in behind them, his movements tight and deliberate. They had just settled on the tile floor when a muffled thud echoed faintly through the house. Lily's hand shot to Rachel's arm. What was that? I don't know, Rachel whispered, already reaching for her phone. She dialed Officer Wilson. No answer. Rex's growl deepened into a low snarl. He stared at the bathroom door, unmoving, as though waiting for something on the other side. Rachel wrapped her arms around Lily and dialed 911. This is Rachel Reynolds, she whispered urgently. Safe house on Westbrook Lane. Something's wrong. Officer Wilson isn't responding. We heard a noise. The dispatcher responded immediately, calm and efficient. Help was en route. Estimated time, for minutes. For minutes, it felt like an eternity. Rachel texted Monroe with trembling fingers. Someone in the house. Wilson not answering. In bathroom with Lily and Rex. 911 called. Then, a sound outside the bedroom. A floorboard creaking. Rachel stopped breathing. The door handle rattled. Once, twice, then a sudden, splintering crack. Rachel held Lily tighter, her lips against the girl's forehead. Police are on the way, she whispered. We just need to stay very, very quiet. Rex took his position, directly in front of the bathroom door, his body low and braced, fangs exposed in a silent snarl. He didn't bark. He waited. Rachel looked around frantically, grabbing the only object within reach, a heavy ceramic soap dispenser. Not much, but it would have to do. Outside, a second footstep. Closer. The handle of the bathroom door twitched. Then silence. Footsteps moved slowly through the bedroom, pausing, listening. Then a voice, low and falsely calm, sent a chill down Rachel's spine. Rachel, Lily, it's Officer Cross. There's been a security breach. I'm here to move you to a safer location. Lily whimpered and buried her face against Rachel's shoulder. Rachel held her close, fiercely willing her to stay silent. I know you're in the bathroom, Cross continued. His voice was closer now, just outside the door. The officer on duty has been temporarily disabled. No help is coming. You need to trust me if you want to stay safe. Rachel's phone buzzed in her pocket. Monroe's reply, Officer's 2 minutes out. Do not open the door. I can explain everything, Rachel, Cross said. His voice turned oily, conversational. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Lily was confused about what happened. I would never hurt a child. The bathroom doorknob twisted slowly. Locked. I'm going to have to insist you open this door, he said, the pleasant tone gone. Now, before this gets unpleasant, Rex growled, low and guttural. Cross hesitated. Ah, Rex is with you, my old partner. A bitter chuckle. Loyalty is a fickle thing, isn't it? He seems to have forgotten who fed him, who trained him. Thud. A heavy blow hit the door. Rachel and Lily flinched. The frame cracked slightly. 30 seconds, Cross snarled. Open the door or I break it down. Rachel's thoughts spun, searching for anything, any way to stall. Why, David, she called out. Her voice sounded braver than she felt. Why Lily? Why any of them? Another slam, though it splintered further. Why? Cross echoed, almost amused. Because I could. Because no one was watching. Because a man in uniform is above suspicion. There was a smile in his voice now. And there's nothing quite like being a hero, is there? Finding the missing child. Getting the applause. The press. The promotions. It's intoxicating. Thud. The door shuttered again. Rachel's heart pounded. And your dog knew, she said desperately. Rex tried to protect those children from you. Cross barked a short laugh. The dog was a problem. Too much empathy. Bad trait for police work. I tried to train it out of him, but crash. The door exploded inward. The lock torn from the frame. Cross stood in the doorway, soaked from the rain, uniform disheveled. His right hand held his service weapon, aimed directly at Rachel. His left arm dangled oddly. Injured, his face was no longer handsome. It was a twisted mask of rage and madness. Time to go, he said flatly. Rex lunged, a blur of fury and muscle. The dog went straight for Cross's throat. The gun fired. Boom! A deafening explosion in the small room. Rex yelled, but didn't stop. His jaws locked onto Cross's gun arm, dragging him down in a tangle of limbs and blood. Run! Rachel screamed, shoving Lily past the fight. She dove for fallen weapon as they passed, hands closing around the cold metal. They made it to the bedroom doorway just as one more step and the dog dies. Rachel froze. Cross had Rex pinned to the floor, the shepherd bleeding from a shoulder wound but still snarling, still trying to fight. A knife. Rachel didn't know where it had come from, was pressed against Rex's throat. Drop the gun, Cross ordered, eyes blazing. Or I finish what I started. Rachel's hands trembled. The weapon felt impossibly heavy. Lily clung to her leg, sobbing. The police are almost here, Rachel said, forcing her voice to remain steady. You can't escape. Maybe not, Cross admitted, pressing the blade harder into Rex's fur. But I can still make sure you and Lily don't testify. Now drop it. Rachel hesitated, torn between keeping the weapon and saving the creature that had protected her child with everything it had. Her grip faltered until Lily spoke. Don't hurt him, she cried. Please don't hurt hurt Rex. Something flickered in Cross's eyes. Confusion, maybe surprise. For a split second, he seemed disoriented, addressed directly by a child he had tried to erase into silence. That moment was enough. Rex twisted violently, his teeth finding Cross's knife hand. The officer howled in pain and rage. Rachel didn't think. She raised a gun, placing herself fully between Cross and Lily. "Don't move," she shouted, surprised by the strength in her own voice. "It's over, David." Cross froze, blood dripping from his mangled hand. His gaze flicked from the gun to Rachel to Rex, still growling despite his injuries. "You won't shoot me," he said, but the certainty in his voice was gone. "You don't have it in you." Rachel's finger curled tighter on the trigger. "Try me?" The distant wail of sirens cut through the heavy air. Cross's expression twisted. Rage, panic, resignation. Then he lunged, a final desperate gamble. Rachel fired. The shot cracked like thunder in the narrow hallway. Cross stumbled back, clutching his shoulder where the bullet struck. He slammed into the wall, blood smearing down the wallpaper as he slid to the floor. "You shot me," he gasped, more stunned than pained. "You actually shot me." Rachel kept the gun trained on him, her grip solid now. "Don't move. The next one won't be your shoulder." Behind her, Lily peered around her mother's legs, tear-streaked but calm. "Bad man," she said again. The same words she'd whispered in the courtroom. The same truth she had carried when no one else believed her. Boots thundered through the house. Uniformed officers burst into the room, weapons drawn. Detective Monroe led the charge, eyes locking instantly on Cross. "Rachel, Lily, are you hurt?" he asked, weapon never wavering. "We're okay," Rachel said, her voice shaking now that it was over. "But Rex's shot, he saved us." Two officers secured Cross, who hissed in pain as they cuffed him. Another rushed to check on Officer Wilson, found unconscious but alive just outside the bedroom. A third officer dropped to his knees beside Rex. "Through and through shoulder wound," the officer reported. "Missed anything vital. He needs a vet, but he's going to make it." Lily tore free from her mother and knelt beside the dog. She stroked his fur gently, whispering to him through fresh tears. "You're okay now. You're okay, Rex. You did good." Rachel knelt beside them, wrapping her arms around her daughter and the wounded dog who had refused to let evil pass. "You stayed," Rachel whispered, stroking Rex's head gently. "You stayed to help us." Detective Monroe carefully took the gun from her trembling hands. "You did good," he said softly. "Really good." Paramedics swept in to treat Officer Wilson and the wounded Cross. Monroe guided Rachel and Lily to the living room, away from the blood and chaos. An officer brought them blankets and water. Rachel sank onto the couch, her adrenaline ebbing, leaving only exhaustion and 1,000 unanswered questions. "How did he find us?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Monroe's jaw tightened. "He accessed the department's safe house registry before his credentials were revoked. Used his clearance to pull the location. Another system failure, one will be fixing." Rachel watched silently as paramedics wheeled Rex out on a stretcher, the dog sedated but stable. Lily insisted on walking beside him, her small hand resting gently on his flank. He remembered her, Rachel said, watching them, even after everything, even when Cross ordered him to help with the abductions. Rex tried to protect the children. Monroe nodded, his expression solemn. "Animals often have a moral compass purer than our own." Rex couldn't stop what was happening, but he stayed. He comforted the victims. And today, he put his life on the line to save Lily. Rachel exhaled, the weight of truth settling into place. And Lily, she recognized him. Not just Cross, Rex too. That's why she wasn't afraid of him in the courtroom. She knew. The first gray light of dawn crept through the windows as crime scene technicians worked quietly around them. Cross was loaded into an ambulance under heavy guard. The hunt was over. But for Lily, for the other children, for a community betrayed by someone sworn to protect them, the healing was only beginning. Rachel wrapped her arms around her daughter as they watched Rex's stretcher disappear into the back of the veterinary transport. "Is Rex going to be okay, Mommy?" Lily asked, her voice small, worried. Rachel kissed the top of her head. "Yes, sweetheart. The doctors will take good care of him." Lily nodded solemnly. "He's a hero." "He is," Rachel agreed. "He's my hero," Lily said, her voice firm now. "And I want him to live with us when he gets better." Rachel looked to Monroe, the silent question in her eyes. Monroe didn't hesitate. "I think that could be arranged," he said, the first genuine smile crossing his face. After all, Rex has made his choice pretty clear. He glanced at Lily, who still stood protectively beside the stretcher, her hand on the dog who had never stopped protecting her. He chose her. It was different this time. Not just any courtroom, but the largest in the county courthouse, filled beyond capacity with press, public, and law enforcement. The air bristled with anticipation, outrage, and something colder, betrayal. Rachel sat in the front row, her parents flanking her protectively. Lily wasn't present. They'd all agreed it would be too traumatic, despite her pivotal role in exposing Officer David Cross's crimes. It had been 1 week since the confrontation at the safe house. 1 week since everything changed. Officer Cross, still handcuffed to a hospital bed under 24-hour guard, had already been formally charged. The prosecutor had listed them in a grim litany: 6 counts of kidnapping, multiple charges of child endangerment, assault on a police officer, attempted murder, and more, dozens more. It hadn't even felt real at the time. It did now. All rise. The bailiff called. Judge Matthews entered, her expression harder than usual, voice clipped and grave. The preliminary hearing was a formality. Everyone knew it, but still necessary to bind the case over for trial. Rachel sat rigid as Cross was brought in, shuffling in an orange jumpsuit, wrists and ankles shackled. His shoulder was heavily bandaged where Rachel's bullet had struck him, his right hand wrapped from Rex's bite. He kept his gaze low, avoiding eye contact, especially with his former colleagues, especially with her. District Attorney Samuel Harrison presented the case with deliberate precision, building each block of evidence like a fortress. Forensics from Cross's property, testimony from the children's doctors, surveillance footage, and finally, the detail that made Rachel's stomach twist, the hidden tunnel beneath the utility shed. When Harrison described the underground space where Lily had been held, Rachel felt her mother's hand tighten around hers like a vice. The Commonwealth has rarely seen a case with such overwhelming evidence, Harrison concluded. Officer Cross exploited his position of trust to prey on the most vulnerable members of our community, and then positioned himself as their rescuer. He had betrayed not only these children and their families, but the very oath he swore to uphold. Cross, as public defender, offered only one request, that his client be held in protective custody, given his former position. Judge Matthews agreed to that single concession. Then she denied bail and ordered the case bound over for trial. As the courtroom emptied, Detective Monroe met Rachel in the hallway. "There's something you should know," he said quietly. He guided her toward a private conference room. Inside stood Chief Williams, the silver-haired head of the Millfield Police Department, and two men she didn't recognize. Mrs. Reynolds. Williams said once introductions were complete. "First, let me offer my personal apology for what your family has endured. The department failed you and the other victims in ways that can never be fully addressed." Rachel gave a short nod. The words sounded right, but they fell hollow against the storm still swirling inside her. "We've launched a comprehensive internal investigation," Williams continued. "Early findings indicate that Cross acted alone in the abductions, but there were institutional failures, gaps in oversight, ignored concerns that allowed his actions to continue." Rachel's voice was quiet, but steady. "Institutional failures," she repeated, the same phrase Monroe had used earlier. "You mean other officers suspected something and looked the other way?" The silence that followed was answer enough. "In some cases, yes." Chief Williams' expression tightened. "Two senior officers have been suspended pending further investigation. They dismissed multiple complaints about Cross's behavior with the K-9 unit and failed to follow up on inconsistencies in his reports. The trainer reported Rex's behavioral changes," Monroe added, "suggested the dog might need to be retired due to unreliable performance. Cross convinced the department it was a medical issue and requested a replacement. Rachel felt sick. He was going to get rid of Rex," she said quietly, "because Rex was trying to protect those children." "That appears to be the case," Chief Williams confirmed solemnly. He exchanged a glance with one of the strangers in the room who stepped forward. "I'm Dr. James Benson." The man said, "I'm a veterinary behaviorist. I've been working with Rex since the incident." "How is he?" Rachel asked, bracing herself. "Physically, he's healing well," Benson said, "but his psychological state is more complicated. He's displaying signs of post-traumatic stress, triggered by certain stimuli associated with Officer Cross." "Is he dangerous?" Rachel asked. Her mind jumped to Lily, to the way the little girl rested her hand on Rex's fur like he was the only safe thing left in the world. "Not in the way you might think," Dr. Benson reassured her. "His protective instincts are heightened, especially around children, but he's no longer fit for police duty. He can't be reliably commanded under high-stress conditions." Chief Williams leaned forward. "What Dr. Benson is saying, Mrs. Reynolds, is that Rex needs to be retired from service. The department would typically place him with his handler. He didn't finish the sentence." Everyone understood why that was an option. Monroe spoke gently. "We know Lily's formed a bond with Rex, and frankly, after reviewing the evidence, it's clear the dog tried to protect her and the other children, even under Cross's control." Rachel's breath caught. She understood now what they were leading toward. "You want us to adopt him?" Dr. Benson nodded. "It would be an unusual arrangement, but under the circumstances, it might be the best outcome for both Rex and Lily. The bond they form could be therapeutic. For both of them, there will be conditions," Chief Williams added. "Ongoing behavioral training with Dr. Benson, certain liability waivers, and Rex is still evidence in our case. If Cross goes to trial, he may need to be present in court." Rachel nodded slowly. She thought of Lily asking about Rex every night, of the stuffed German shepherd she slept with in his absence, of how she looked into his eyes and known, before anyone else, that he was more than a police dog. He was their protector. He was hers. "I'll need to discuss it with Lily, of course," Rachel said, "but I think she's already made her decision." On the drive home, Rachel turned on the radio. The reporter's voice was calm, But the words were not. Additional investigations have been opened into 3 neighboring police departments where Officer Cross had previously worked or trained. The unfolding scandal is revealing systemic failures far beyond the town of Millfield. Protests have formed outside the Millfield Police Department, with citizens demanding accountability and reform. Rachel turned the volume down and glanced in the rearview mirror. Lily was quiet in the back seat, gazing out the window, the stuffed dog clutched to her chest. Rachel reached across the console and rested her hand over the envelope of adoption papers the department had given her. It wouldn't fix what had happened, but it was a beginning. Accountability and oversight at home. Lily sat cross-legged at the kitchen table with her grandmother, coloring a picture of a German shepherd with careful, focused strokes. She looked up the moment Rachel walked through the door. "Did you see Rex today?" she asked, eyes wide with worry. Rachel crouched beside her daughter, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "Not today, sweetheart, but I talked to the doctors who are taking care of him. His shoulder is getting better." Lily's expression turned hopeful, then cautious. "When can he come home?" It was a simple question, but it carried so much weight. Rachel chose her words carefully. "Lily, Rex is a police dog. He was trained to work with Officer Cross. Now that Officer Cross is gone, the police have to decide what happens to him." Lily's face crumpled. "They can't take him away. He needs us." Rachel smiled softly. "Actually, they asked if we might want to adopt him, to have him come live with us permanently." Lily's eyes lit up, her whole body straightening with excitement. "Really? He could be our dog? Forever?" "It would be a big responsibility," Rachel said gently. "Rex will need special training. We'll have to help him adjust to being a family dog, not a police dog." Lily nodded with absolute conviction. "I'll help him. He helped me when I was scared. Now I can help him not be scared anymore." Rachel stared at her daughter, overwhelmed by the depth of her empathy. Even after all she'd endured, Lily understood something the rest of the world still struggled with. Healing wasn't about justice or policy. It was about connection, about showing up for each other. While the adults debated oversight and institutional betrayal, Lily had boiled everything down to its essence. Someone had hurt her. Someone had tried to help her. And now she could help in return. Rachel hugged her tightly, wishing healing could always be that straightforward. 3 months later, Rachel sat in Dr. Porter's office, reviewing Lily's progress. The therapist's walls were lined with children's artwork. Lily's drawings displayed prominently. What had once been dark, chaotic scribbles had evolved into more structured images, still serious, but now with soft touches of color returning. Dr. Porter closed her notebook. "She's doing remarkably well," she said. "The nightmares are less frequent. Her play therapy shows decreasing anxiety, and she's engaging socially at school in ways consistent with her age group." Rachel nodded, relief tempered by cautious realism. "She still has moments. Yesterday, we were in the front yard, and a police car drove by. She froze completely until it passed." Dr. Porter offered a reassuring smile. "That's to be expected. Trauma recovery isn't linear. There will be triggers and setbacks. But overall, Lily's resilience is extraordinary." Rachel exhaled slowly. Rex has helped. For the past 8 weeks, the German shepherd had slept outside Lily's bedroom door, pacing the hallway whenever she cried out in her sleep. He walked her to the bus stop each morning, tail wagging. Dr. Benson continued his weekly visits, guiding Rex's transition from working dog to family companion. Dr. Porter nodded. "Animals can provide a unique healing presence," she said, "especially for children like Lily, where the dog represents both the trauma and the rescue. Their bond gives her a kind of safety that we humans can't quite replicate." Rachel smiled faintly. "He's not just a protector. She's becoming his, too." Dr. Porter's eyes softened. "Then perhaps that's where the healing begins. For both of them." As Rachel drove home, her phone rang. Detective Monroe's name on the screen still triggered a reflexive flutter of anxiety, though their conversations had grown increasingly cordial. "Rachel, we need to talk," he said without preamble. "Cross is offering a deal." Rachel immediately pulled to the side of the road, heart pounding. "What kind of deal?" Full confession. Names of the officers who helped cover for him, in exchange for a reduced sentence. 25 years instead of life. Monroe's voice was carefully neutral. "The DA wants to know how you feel about it." Rachel gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. "He's trying to avoid a trial, to keep Lily from testifying." "Partly," Monroe admitted, "but there's more." During interrogation, he started talking about others, not just officers who looked the other way, people who shared his interests, Rachel's stomach turned. The implication hit with cold, unmistakable clarity. A network. We don't know yet, Monroe said. It could be manipulation, a ploy to boost his bargaining power. But we can't ignore the possibility. Rachel stared out at the quiet street in front of her. Houses lined neatly in a row. A child's bike on a lawn. A sprinkler ticking. The normalcy was surreal. What does the DA recommend? Off the record? Monroe hesitated. Take the deal. It locks Cross away for at least 25 years. Lily never has to relive her trauma in court. And we get leverage to go after whoever else might be involved. Rachel exhaled slowly. I need time to think. I want to talk to Lily's therapist and my parents. Of course, Monroe said. There's no rush today. Just wanted you to know it's on the table. When the call ended, Rachel remained parked, watching as a yellow school bus rumbled past. A child pressed her face to the window, waving at no one in particular. 25 years. Lily would be 30 by the time Cross was eligible for parole. Would that be justice? Could anything be? When Rachel got home, she found her father in the backyard with Lily and Rex. The dog was responding to basic commands. Sit, stay, come, with increasing confidence despite a slight stiffness in his healing shoulder. Mommy, watch. Lily called. Rex can find things now. Grandpa had my teddy bear. Rachel watched as Lily handed Rex a smaller stuffed animal to sniff. Find it, Rex. The German shepherd lowered his nose to the ground and began quartering the yard methodically, moving with a sense of purpose and joy. Seconds later, he emerged from under a shrub with the missing teddy bear clenched gently in his jaws. Lily squealed with delight. Dr. Benson says he's a natural at scent work, her father said, walking up beside Rachel. Different from police tracking, more like a game. Good for his confidence. He paused, glancing toward Lily. Good for hers, too. That evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Rex stationed loyally outside her door. Rachel sat with her parents at the kitchen table and told them about Cross's proposed deal. Take it, her mother said immediately. Spare Lily the trauma of a trial. That monster doesn't deserve the dignity of a courtroom drama. Her father was quieter, more thoughtful. What does Lily want? Rachel hesitated. I haven't asked her, not directly. He nodded slowly. Then maybe that's a place to start. Rachel looked down the hallway, where her daughter now slept peacefully behind a closed door. Rex standing guard like always. Some decisions weren't about punishment. They were about protecting what remained. I haven't asked her, Rachel admitted. I'm not sure how much she should be involved in this decision. She's young, her father agreed, but this happened to her. Giving her some agency in the resolution might be important for her healing. The next morning, Rachel arranged a special session with Dr. Porter to discuss how best to approach the subject with Lily. Together, they crafted a simplified explanation, enough truth to offer clarity, but not so much that overwhelmed her. That afternoon, in their sunlit kitchen, Rachel sat with Lily at the table. Rex lay at the girl's feet, his tail thumping gently against the floor. Sweetheart, Rachel began carefully. The bad man, Officer Cross, has said he'll tell the truth about everything he did. That means you wouldn't have to go to court and talk about the scary things. Neither would the other children. Lily's eyes widened. Will he still go to jail? She asked immediately, her priorities sharp and clear. Yes, for a very long time, until you're all grown up. Lily stroked Rex's ears in silence, thinking, what about the other children? She asked. Do they have to talk in court? Rachel's heart ached at her daughter's quiet compassion. If he tells the truth like he promised, they won't have to. And Rex? Does he have to go back to the police? No, honey. Rex is retired now. He stays with us no matter what. Lily nodded slowly, processing it all. Then, with soft resolve, I want the bad man to tell the truth, so nobody has to be scared talking about it. Rachel relayed Lily's decision to Monroe. For days later, in a closed courtroom attended only by essential court staff, victim families, and senior officers, David Cross entered his guilty plea. As agreed, he confessed not only to known abductions, but to 3 additional cases spanning his 15-year career. More disturbingly, he implicated 2 former colleagues from nearby departments, exposing a network of evidence tampering, shared cover-ups, and whispered protection. Judge Matthews accepted the plea with visible reluctance. Let the record reflect, she stated, that this court finds the defendant's crimes deserving of the maximum punishment. This agreement is accepted solely to spare the victims further trauma and pursue additional perpetrators. Cross was led away in handcuffs to begin a 25-year sentence. In the hallway, District Attorney Harrison approached Rachel quietly. We couldn't have broken this case without Lily, he said. Her courage in that courtroom, just saying those 2 words, it started everything. Because of her, we've uncovered a pattern of abuse going back over a decade. Children who might never have been heard will now have a voice. And the officers he named? Rachel asked. Already under investigation, Harrison confirmed. Search warrants are being executed now. This isn't over. But at least now we know what we're fighting and who. That night, as Rachel tucked Lily into bed, the soft hush of bedtime settling around them, her daughter looked up with the quiet wisdom of someone who had seen too much too soon. phone. Mommy, she asked, her voice small but steady, are there other bad men like him? Rachel sat on the edge of the bed, brushing a curl from Lily's forehead. Yes, she answered honestly. There are, but now we know how to find them and stop them. Lily nodded slowly, then reached for Rex, who had already curled at the foot of her bed. We'll keep each other safe, right? Always, Rachel said, leaning down to kiss her daughter's cheek. You're never alone. In the quiet that followed, Rachel stood in the doorway, watching over both child and dog. The road ahead would still hold shadows, but they were no longer walking alone. Rachel hesitated, torn between honesty and the instinct to shield. There are some, she said gently, but there are many more good people working to stop them. Lily nodded, accepting the balance without fear, like Detective Monroe and Rex. Yes, Rachel said, smoothing her daughter's hair. Like them. And like you, Lily, you helped stop a bad man by being brave enough to tell the truth. A small smile spread across Lily's face, the first genuine smile Rachel had seen in months. Rex helped too, she said, reaching down to pat the dog, who lay curled and vigilant by her bed. We helped each other 6 months later, on a crisp October morning not unlike the one when Lily had disappeared. The town square was alive with energy and hope. Rachel stood near the front, watching her daughter and Rex perform a demonstration for the gathered crowd. The German shepherd moved through a series of obstacles with fluid precision, responding to Lily's voice with focused enthusiasm. His former police harness had been replaced by a sleek therapy vest embroidered with the words, "Working dog, please ask before petting." That's incredible, said Dr. Porter, who had come to witness this milestone. I wouldn't have believed such progress was possible a year ago. Rachel nodded, her heart full, watching as Lily guided Rex through a low tunnel, her voice clear, her posture confident. Dr. Benson says they're the fastest team he's ever trained, she said. Something about their connection. He says they understand each other in ways he can't explain. The event marked the public launch of Lily's Law, a sweeping reform package that had passed through the state legislature with rare bipartisan unity. The law mandated independent oversight of all K-9 units, specialized training and protocols for interviewing children in trauma cases, comprehensive background screening for officers working with vulnerable populations, state-funded therapy animal programs for child victims across all counties. At the podium, Judge Matthews waited to make the day's official remarks. Standing beside her was Detective Monroe, recently promoted to head the newly formed Special Victims Integrity Unit, tasked with investigating abuse and misconduct by authority figures. When the applause for Lily and Rex subsided, Judge Matthews addressed the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, 2 years ago, a terrible betrayal of trust occurred in our community. A man tasked with protecting the innocent instead became their predator. But from that darkness emerged a force of courage and clarity. A child who spoke the truth. A dog who stood guard. A mother who refused to let silence win. She looked toward Lily and smiled. Lily's Law exists because one small voice proved stronger than years of deception. Because healing is not only possible, it is powerful. And because justice, when fought for, can lead to change. The crowd erupted into applause. Lily beamed, holding tightly to Rex's leash. Rachel, standing in the warmth of that October sun, felt something shift inside her. Grief and trauma giving way to something else. Not closure, but momentum, hope with teeth, and a future shaped by truth, sworn to protect us. Use this position to harm the most vulnerable among us. Judge Matthews' voice echoed across the town square. We cannot undo that harm. But today, we take concrete steps to ensure it never happens again. The crowd, solemn, attentive, included the 6 families whose children had been victimized by Cross. Behind them, news cameras broadcast the event live across the state. But policy alone cannot heal wounds or rebuild trust, the judge continued. That requires courage, compassion, and the kind of remarkable resilience demonstrated by young Lily Reynolds and her 4-legged partner, Rex. She gestured toward the stage as Lily stepped forward, Rex walking perfectly at heel. At 6, Lily was still small for her age, but she carried herself with quiet grace. As the applause swelled, she accepted a framed certificate from the governor's representative, an official commendation recognizing her extraordinary bravery in standing up for truth and justice. Rachel, watching from the audience, felt tears blur her vision. This moment, so public, so powerful, had been unimaginable a year ago. Lily stepped to the microphone. They had practiced the speech together, but the words still struck with quiet power. Rex helped me feel safe again, she said simply. Some kids who get hurt need a friend like him. Rex couldn't talk to tell what happened, but he tried to help in other ways. Now, he helps kids like me who are scared. That's his new job. The crowd erupted into thunderous applause. Rachel saw her parents in the front row, wiping their eyes. Even Detective Monroe, usually stoic, was blinking rapidly. Later that afternoon, the families gathered at Rachel's home for a quieter celebration. The backyard had been transformed. Balloons and streamers flooded in the breeze. A handmade banner stretched between 2 flame-colored maple trees. Lily and Rex, heroes, the children once connected only by shared trauma, now played together, laughing, chasing, pacing, hiding. Rex wove through them with calm vigilance, gentle but alert. He still sees himself as their protector, Dr. Benson noted, accepting a cup of coffee from Rachel on the patio. It's remarkable how he distinguishes these children from others. He remembers them all. Do you think they remember everything? Rachel asked quietly, watching Lily organize a game of hide and seek. Her natural leadership emerging among her peers. Children process trauma differently than adults, Dr. Porter said, joining them. Some memories will fade. Others may return during milestones, puberty, relationships, parenthood. But with the right support, they'll integrate the experience instead of being defined by it. Rachel nodded, thoughtful. So much had changed since that moment in the courtroom, when Lily had pointed at Cross and said the words that broke the case wide open. Since then, 4 additional officers across 3 counties had been arrested. Dozens of cases were reopened. The network Cross had protected and been protected by was dismantled. His 25-year sentence no longer felt like conclusion, but rather the beginning of something far larger, a reckoning, a reformation. Rachel watched as Lily ducked behind a tree and called softly for Rex, who found her within seconds, tail wagging. She says she wants to be a K-9 trainer when she grows up, Rachel said, her voice full of quiet pride. Dr. Benson smiled. She already is. Grows up, Rachel said softly, watching Lily demonstrate a hand signal to one of the younger children, who giggled with delight as Rex responded perfectly, or a veterinarian, or possibly both. She'd be excellent at either, Dr. Benson replied with a warm smile. She has a natural gift with animals, especially Rex. Their communication goes beyond commands. It's a partnership. As the sun dipped below the trees and guests began to trickle out, Detective Monroe approached Rachel and gently pulled her aside. I wanted you to know, the Oversight Committee finished their review yesterday. 17 policy changes are already in effect. 3 more officers have been formally disciplined for failing to report suspicions. And he paused. Chief Williams is taking early retirement. Rachel took the news in with a mix of relief and residual grief. Chief Williams had cooperated fully, even testifying against his own, but the systemic failures had flourished under his leadership. Who's replacing him? Captain Diaz. Internal Affairs. She's smart, incorruptible, and already proposing to make the therapy dog program permanent. Rachel nodded slowly, appreciation mingling with quiet awareness that no structural reform could ever fully undo what had happened. Thank you, Elijah, for everything, for believing Lily that day. Monroe's expression softened. I believed Rex too, he said, his voice lower now, touched with something deeper. 25 years in law enforcement. You learn to read people. But that dog, he knew. He tried to tell us in the only way he could. He looked toward Rex, who was now lying peacefully on the grass as children took turns reading to him from a picture book. Sometimes, Monroe murmured, the truest judge of character has 4 legs and a tail. After the last guest had gone and Lily was tucked into bed, Rachel sat alone on the back porch. The air was crisp, the stars bright in a cloudless autumn sky. Rex padded out to join her, settling at her feet with a quiet sigh. She reached down and gently stroked his ears. He accepted the touch, calm and content. You did good today, she whispered. You both did. The months had brought change. Slow, deliberate healing. Lily still had therapy ahead, and there would be future challenges, memories that might resurface as she grew. They would have to prepare someday for Cross's parole hearing, decades from now, but not tonight. Tonight, they had peace, and that was enough. Inside, Lily's room was filled with soft light, her nightlight casting constellations across the ceiling, a gift from her grandparents. Rachel stood quietly in the doorway for a moment, listening to the deep, even rhythm of her daughter's breathing. On the bedside table stood a photograph from that morning ceremony. Lily and Rex, side by side, looking directly into the camera with matching expressions of quiet dignity. Earlier, Rachel had asked her daughter what she thought about having a law named after her. Lily had considered the question, her small brow furrowed with the same seriousness she brought to her training sessions. It should be called Lily and Rex's Law, she'd said at last, because we did it together. And indeed, the official documentation had been amended. A small change, but a meaningful one. A profound truth about healing and justice had emerged from their journey. No one stands against darkness alone. It takes allies, sometimes found in the most unexpected forms. Rachel rose from her porch chair. Rex was immediately alert, rising to his feet and falling in step beside her. Together, they made one final walk to the house, checking the doors and windows. Once a ritual born from fear, it had become one of mindful reassurance. A habit of care, not panic. At Lily's bedroom door, Rex resumed his familiar post, lying down across the threshold with a soft, steady huff. Rachel paused, standing in the hallway beneath the dim moonlight, gazing gazing out through the window. 2 years ago, everything had broken, shattered by a predator cloaked in trust. But healing had not come from forgetting. It came from reclaiming safety, reclaiming agency, reclaiming the quiet courage to move forward. "Good night, Rex," she whispered. A soft thump of his tail was his only reply. Tomorrow would bring more work, an interview with a national news outlet about Lily and Rex's law, another therapy session, more conversations with survivors and advocates. The road ahead would always require strength. But tonight, in this house where a child slept peacefully and a silent guardian stood watch, the future finally held more promise than fear. Rachel turned toward her own room, but paused once more. Moonlight caught on the small wooden sign Lily had painted and hung on her door. Lily and Rex, brave together. Some partnerships, Rachel reflected, were written in the stars. Others were forged in darkness, then shaped by resilience and light. This was one of those. An unexpected alliance between a wounded child and a retired K-9 who had once served justice in silence and now helped heal it. As we reflect on Lily and Rex's story, we're reminded of what truly matters in this unpredictable world we've built for our children and our grandchildren. Remember when neighbors looked out for each other's kids? When trust in uniforms was instinctive, not earned in hindsight. When protector meant just that. Lily's story stirs that place in us where fear and hope coexist. Fear that those meant to shield the vulnerable might become the danger, but also the hope that even in betrayal's aftermath, something better can rise. It reminds us that change is possible, real, lasting change, when we stand together. It took a child's quiet bravery. It took a dog's incorruptible loyalty. And it took those willing to listen after too long of looking away. Lily and Rex's law was never just about statutes and policies. It was about reclaiming a promise. One we owe to every child in every town. To the families who raised children with open hearts and vigilant eyes. To the neighbors who built communities grounded in trust and care. To those who fought for better schools and safer streets. Lily and Rex remind us, healing begins with simple acts of bravery. Their bond between a silent child and a retired K-9 mirrors a protective instinct we all feel toward the next generation. It is a testament to what love looks like when it is shaped by trauma, but guided by hope. When Lily stood in that courtroom and said those two words, "bad man," she spoke for every child who has ever needed to be heard and believed. And Rex, loyal beyond training, vigilant beyond command, reminds us that the deepest truths are sometimes spoken without words. His steadfast presence by Lily's side was more than comfort. It was conviction. This is their legacy, not just a law or a ceremony, but a living, breathing truth. That courage can come in small voices and justice can arrive on 4 quiet paws.